The .NET Framework is a programming infrastructure created by Microsoft for building, deploying, and running applications and services that use .NET technologies such as desktop applications and web services, and enable the power of integrated applications. So it is actually a three-tier system where it contains the data type, the business type, and the presentation type. So here the business type is actually concerning with the business logic and the application logic plus the functional whatever the requirement comes up. The business tier is actually concerned about. Now each of the data access layer actually is waiting for its own database support. That particular database support comes from the data tier, and data here can be anything like an Excel sheet. It can be a set of XML files. It can be any other source of database like the Microsoft SQL Server. It can be even an Oracle server, or it can be any other MS Access sources. So here the presentation layer is nothing but the output of the application that comes in the form of the pages. So here in case of WinForms it will be WinForm pages, in case of web applications it will be just a web form page, that is website page, and in case of console applications it is nothing but a consular window, consular debugging output window. So now what happens is that we have to take care of certain components that actually governs the .NET framework, and it mainly of 4 types. And firstly, it is a common language runtime. The common language runtime is nothing but, so here first the human fed language, that is the source code is getting converted into an intermediate language that is called Microsoft intermediate language, that is called MSL code. So once it has been converted into MSL code, so there is a concept of a compile time environment that is called the GID compiler. So that is actually checking for a managed native code. The managed native code in the sense the code means the MSIL code is purely free of all the debugging errors and all statistical errors, or it can be any other kind of function prototyping errors. So all these the debugging errors, build errors can be checked by the GID compiler, and if it checks for a managed native code. If it is managed code, the executable code will be sent to the CPU, and CPU will execute it, and the output is a presentation layer that will display each of the pages. In case of web, it will be web page. In case of uniform, it will be uniform page. In case of console, it will be console page. So this is how the framework architecture works. Now let us take the concept of a CLR. Now CLR actually it has to look for this managed native aspect, that is debug errors, and finally it has been resolved. The code is executed and the CPU is executing the code, and finally output window displays the respective display. So here the .NET framework gives the support. The support comes from the compiler is that there is a C#, VB.NET, and C# that can have an object-oriented concepts that will be triggering the optimizing part of each of the applications. Now finally CLR is just the debugging word, looking for the rectification of all the errors before the respective pages get open in the presentation layer. So now what is the .NET base class libraries does is that it gives all the functional support for a particular event to happen. For example, let us take the case of a web page opening with a login page, and we need to feed with username and password. I see all the functional requirement that is governing this particular login page gets the support from the base class library. The framework gives the base class library all the essential features that will be triggering this particular event. Now for example, now let's take the case of a calculator itself. We need to feed two int quantities and integer quantities, and with the summation button, and the calculator will be displaying the addition and subtraction whatever the requirement it needs. So here also the basic calculator support supporting this event. All the functional support comes from the base class libraries. Now let us take the case of and it is applicable for each of these applications: Windows application, console application, web application. It can be an XML web application, it can be even Windows sources. Now let us take the case of a CTS. So CTS is nothing but this common language support that is offered by each of the frameworks for a particular event to happen in an application. So it's just a subset of the featured part of a particular language that the framework utilizes for an application. So now it can be the value type and it can be a reference type, two types of features that it can access from the languages. Now let us take the case of CLR. CLR is nothing but a subset part of the CTS and is referred to as specifically satisfied by all language compilers targeting the CLR. It helps in the cross-language inheritance and cross-language debugging. Now let us take the case of a .NET framework and what kind of application can support. We generally had discussed. Now let us make a review of it. So it's one of them is a console application. Now it's Windows application. and there is a web application, there is a service-oriented application like the Windows Service Communication Foundations, and there can be web services that are also kind of Windows Communication Foundations, and Windows Services also is kind of a integrated service, and same is the case with WPF and WWF, etc. Now here the language support comes from the VB console C#, VB, then Visual C++, JSharp, etc. that has the object-oriented modeling. So it has to optimize the application to give the best results. Now it and it's followed by interoperability concept that will give the set of tools that enables the integration of the modules developed with one another, and it also creates a shareable components to be used in the distributed computing environment. Now let us take the case of .NET Framework, and it's revised with the important features that needs its applications. So far the .NET Framework with respect to applications are concerned. So it can be like the interoperability with multiple language supports, the cross-platform supports, the language independence with respect to every particular application, the base class libraries governing each of these kind of applications, the ease of development, the process, and security features that is governing these applications. So this is all the basic requirements that comes for managed native code for Microsoft language supporting applications. And how the MSL code works and execution code works, everything is governed by the base class libraries, and with the common language runtime aspect has been scheduled in this particular flowchart. Basically, it's an easy understanding of the common language runtime aspect, and this is how the .NET Framework works.